The neon glow of Arlion Prime's capital flickered against rain-slicked alleys, throwing fractured colors across the puddles. For most, the upper levels of the city were a dazzling marvel of trade and diplomacy. For Lyra, it was just a reminder of how far she had fallen. Once, she had been a student of music, her 4 delicate head frills painted in bright patterns that marked her as a daughter of a proud house. But that was before her family was lost in the syndicate raids, before she was spat out onto the streets with nothing but her voice, and even that had grown hoarse from begging. Now, at 17, she wore rags that clung damp to her thin frame. She sat huddled under a broken holosign, clutching a small metal dish for scraps. Most walked by, without seeing her. To them, she was just another orphaned alien girl, another piece of the city's forgotten machinery. That night, as the rain thinned to mist, something unusual happened. A man stumbled past her corner, tall, human, with an expensive coat trimmed in silver thread. He moved quickly, his boots splashing through puddles, eyes fixed on the glowing towers above. But as he passed, something slipped from his pocket, a small black wallet, tumbling into the gutter with a faint splash. Lyra blinked. Her stomach was a hollow pit. She hadn't eaten in 2 days. She reached for the wallet with trembling fingers. It was heavy. Inside were credit chits, enough to feed her for months, along with identity seals and diplomatic insignia. The man who had dropped it was no ordinary citizen. He was Elias Morrow, Earth's senior envoy to the Arlion Council. She froze. The easy choice was clear. Take the money.
Run.
Buy food, maybe even rent a pod on the lower docks where no one would bother her. But as she held the wallet, a different thought gnawed at her. Her mother's voice came back to her, faint and fading with memory. We are not thieves, Lyra. Even in darkness, we carry the light of our honor. Her throat tightened. Slowly, she rose and limped after him. Elias Morrow had spent his evening locked in bitter negotiations, his mind too clouded to notice the weight gone from his pocket. When a small voice called out behind him, he turned, surprised. Sir, wait. He saw her then, frail, alien, drenched in the rain. She held up the wallet with both hands, as if it were too heavy for her. You dropped this. For a moment, Elias simply stared. In this city, things lost were never returned. Certainly not by children who looked as if they hadn't eaten in days. He took the wallet, scanning its contents quickly. Nothing missing. His gaze softened. You brought this back to me? She nodded. It's yours. What's your name? Lyra, she whispered. Do you know what this is worth? He held up a credit chit between 2 fingers. More than enough for a warm bed. For food. Her eyes flickered to the chit, hunger plain in them, but she shook her head. Not mine. Something in Elias shifted. Here was a girl who had nothing, yet still chose honor. In his years of diplomacy, he had seen powerful men betray entire planets for less. He crouched slightly, lowering himself to her eye level. Lyra, do you have anywhere to go? She hesitated, then shook her head. The decision struck him like a lightning bolt. It was reckless, perhaps even dangerous in the eyes of his peers. But in his heart, he knew he couldn't walk away. Come with me, Elias said. The embassy's polished marble halls were a world away from the dripping alleys. Lyra walked in silence, barefoot, leaving faint wet prints behind her. The guards frowned, but Elias silenced their questions with a wave of his hand. He led her into a private dining chamber. Within minutes, warm food was set before her. Bread, steaming broth, slices of fruit. She devoured it with trembling hands, tears slipping down her cheeks. Elias watched quietly. He thought of his own daughter, lost years ago to fever on a distant colony. Something about Lyra's resilience, her quiet dignity, stirred that old ache. When she had eaten, he asked, "How long have you been living on the streets?" 2 years, she whispered. "Since the raids. My family gone." His chest tightened. This city was full of children like her, abandoned casualties of endless conflicts. But few crossed his path, fewer still with such unyielding honesty. "You could stay here," Elias said slowly. "Not as a servant, not as a beggar, but as my ward. Safe, fed, with a future." Lyra's frills trembled in shock. "Why?" "I'm nothing to you." "You returned something precious when you could have taken it," he replied. "That tells me more about who you are than any pedigree." For the first time in years, hope flickered in her wide eyes. News traveled fast in diplomatic circles. By morning, whispers spread. The Terran envoy had taken in a street urchin. Critics muttered that he was naive, that he risked scandal. Others sneered that she was just another alien pet, a charity case. But Elias did not care. He enrolled Lyra in the embassy's academy, where tutors marveled at her quick mind and talent for languages. Within months, she was speaking fluent Terran Standard, writing elegant scripts, and even coaxing music from an old Terran instrument, a violin Elias had kept unused for years. Yet the city remembered who she had been. One afternoon, on her way back from lessons, a group of young nobles cornered her in the plaza. "Street rat," one hissed, sneering at her patched cloak. "You don't belong among us." Another tried to shove her. But before they could, Elias appeared, his presence cutting through the crowd like a blade. His voice was calm, but carried iron. "This girl," he said, placing a hand gently on Lyra's shoulder, "is under my protection. More than that, she is proof that dignity and honor can survive even the harshest streets. Can any of you say the same?" The nobles faltered under his gaze, retreating. Lyra looked up at him, her heart swelling. Years passed. Lyra grew into a poised young woman, her frills now painted again with the bright hues of her people. No longer a beggar, she stood beside Elias at the council chamber, translating alien dialects, drafting treaties, and even speaking in debates. Some diplomats scoffed at first, until her sharp wit and unshakable fairness won them over. Where Elias had once been a lone voice for peace, now he had an ally whose very life embodied the power of compassion. One evening, after a long council session, Elias stood on the embassy balcony, watching the stars. Lyra joined him, the city lights reflecting in her eyes. "You changed everything," she said softly. He shook his head. "No, Lyra. You did, when you chose to return something that wasn't yours. That choice brought us both here." Tears welled in her eyes. "If I hadn't, then the galaxy would have lost one of its brightest lights." They stood together in silence, gazing at the stars that stretched beyond Arlion Prime, beyond war and loss. And across the galaxy, whispers spread of the orphan girl who became a diplomat, not because of power or wealth, but because she returned a wallet when she could have taken it. Her story stunned everyone who heard it. But to Elias and Lyra, it was simple. It was the story of a moment of honesty in the rain, and the bond it forged between a weary diplomat and a girl who refused to let honor die.